The stars shone brightly over the galaxy, but the light of the Celestine Empire was fading. Once a realm of unimaginable beauty and power, the Empire had ruled for centuries with wisdom and grace. Its fleets with shimmering silver hulls patrolled countless worlds. Its cities sparkled like jewels, floating above oceans or resting on verdant plains. People admired their rulers, and planets under their care thrived. But all that beauty could not withstand the sudden storm. The first sign came as a flicker on the edge of space. A dark, silent fleet appearing where no one expected. The Vorn Dominion, a race of warriors known for cruelty and efficiency, had arrived. Their ships were massive, black as night, moving in perfect formations. They were not just advanced. They were terrifyingly fast, and their weapons were beyond anything the Celestines had ever seen. Princess Lyra Celestine sat in the command chamber of her flagship, the Radiant Dawn, her golden hair falling over her shoulders as she watched the holomap with widening eyes. The glowing symbol showed the paths of incoming enemy fleets, and they were closing in faster than the Empire's intelligence could track. "Mother," she whispered, her voice trembling. She was only 17, but as heir to the throne she had been trained for diplomacy, leadership, and survival. Yet even her training had not prepared her for this. Her mother, Empress Solara, was beside her, calm but grim. "The Dominion has chosen a strike we could not anticipate. They move with precision and purpose. Evacuation is the only choice." Lyra's heart sank. Evacuation meant leaving entire worlds behind, leaving people to fight or die. She clenched her fists. There must be another way. "We have fleets, armies." The Empress shook her head. "Not against them, my daughter. Their technology is unlike anything in our history. We fight, we die, but we survive perhaps if we scatter. If we flee now, you may live to see another day." Before Lyra could answer, the alarm screamed. Red lights bathed the chamber as the first enemy ships pierced the outer defenses of Orius 9, one of the Empire's largest worlds. Explosions rippled across the planet's surface, shaking the orbital station beneath their feet. "Princess Lyra, you must leave immediately," her mother urged, pressing a small emergency device into Lyra's hand. "This is your escape beacon. Only you can carry it. Take it and run. Promise me you will survive." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "I promise." She kissed her mother's cheek and ran toward the escape pods. Outside, the universe had become chaos. Silver lights of the Empire's fleet blinked against the black, while dark streaks of the Vorn ships moved like predators. Explosions burst in the void. Debris floated in all directions, and distant worlds burned like dying stars. The princess boarded a small pod, designed for only a few passengers. The engines hummed as it detached from the Radiant Dawn, the flagship trembling violently as the enemy's fire tore through its hull. She pushed a button on the console. The escape beacon activated, sending her position into the void. The pod shot away from Orius 9, dodging debris, feeling smaller and weaker with every passing moment. Hours passed. Days, maybe. Time became meaningless in the darkness of space. Lyra drifted alone, hoping for rescue. But no one answered. She tried the comms repeatedly, calling the Empire, calling for help, calling anyone. But the static was all that returned. Her thoughts wandered. Was this the end? Would she ever see her mother again? She hugged her knees, tears sliding silently down her face, and then, almost like a miracle, a signal appeared on the sensors. It was weak, tiny, and almost invisible, but unmistakable. Another ship. Another life in the endless void. Her hands shook as she adjusted the pod's course. The ship came into view. A small, unassuming craft, nothing like the massive warships of the Empire. Its hull was scratched and old, but it moved with speed and agility. A hatch opened and a figure emerged. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. He was human. She had read about humans in old historical records, but everyone believed they had vanished centuries ago. Legends described them as the first explorers of the galaxy. Small and fragile but clever, resilient and fierce. They were stories, myths, nothing more. And yet, here he was, standing in a white suit with simple boots, looking at her with sharp brown eyes that seemed to weigh everything in the universe. "My name is Daniel Ward," he said. His voice was calm, steady, and commanding in a way that surprised her. "You're Princess Lyra Celestine. You need help." I don't understand," Lyra stammered. "Humans. They were gone. How are you here?" Daniel smiled faintly. "Some of us survived. Some of us hid. And some of us. Wait for the right moment. Before Lyra could question him further, sensors on his ship blared. Enemy fleet detected. You need to get inside now. She scrambled into the ship as Daniel worked the controls. Lyra watched the Vorn ships on the view screen. Hundreds of them, massive and unrelenting, moving as if they were a single organism. Daniel's hands flew over the controls, and the small ship darted through space with impossible precision. Lasers sliced past them and explosions shook the hull, but Daniel never faltered. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. How are you doing this? She asked, wide-eyed. Experience, he said simply. Humans don't rely on machines the way other species do. We think, we react, we improvise. That's why we survive. Lyra stared at him, realizing that this human, this legend, was not just brave. He was extraordinary. Every movement, every calculation, every dodge was more than skill. It was instinct. For hours they fled, weaving through asteroid fields, dodging enemy fire, and navigating debris from destroyed worlds. Lyra had never felt fear like this, nor awe like this, watching a being so small face an entire fleet and survive. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Daniel brought the ship to a quiet orbit around an uninhabited planet. Lush green forests covered its surface. Rivers gleamed in the sunlight and mountains rose like ancient guardians. This will do for now, Daniel said. You need to rest. They will not follow us immediately, but they will not give up. Lyra sank into a seat, trembling with exhaustion. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know how to repay you. Daniel shrugged. You don't. You survived, that's enough. For the first time in days, Lyra allowed herself to breathe. She looked at the human beside her and realized that the stories were true. Humans were not just survivors, they were heroes. And somehow she felt that in his presence hope had returned. The sun set on the horizon of the distant planet, painting the sky with orange and pink hues. Lyra stared at it, feeling a strange calm. She did not know what the future held, or how they would fight the Vorn Dominion, but one thing was certain. She was no longer alone. Somewhere in the vast galaxy, a human was fighting alongside her. And that human might just change everything. The galaxy was in chaos, but for Princess Lyra Celestine, the first true glimmer of hope had appeared. She had survived the escape from Aureus 9, learned the human ways from Daniel Ward, and discovered that humans, once thought extinct, were clever, fearless, and unpredictable. Now, with the Vorn Dominion tracking them across star systems, survival would mean more than just running. It would mean inspiring others to fight back. Daniel's small ship, the Odyssey, glided silently through the void, its dark hull reflecting the distant suns. Despite its worn appearance, it had one advantage. Daniel. Every system he entered, every asteroid field he navigated, he did so with the intuition and skill of a species that had once explored the farthest corners of the galaxy. Lyra watched him work, fascinated. How do you always know where to go? She asked. Daniel smiled faintly. We humans rely on more than just instruments. We observe patterns, we anticipate danger, we improvise. Machines are predictable. Other species follow algorithms. Humans think outside the grid. Lyra nodded slowly. She had seen it firsthand. Daniel could dodge faster than any fleet, predict attacks before they happened, and always find a way to survive when escape seemed impossible. Where are we going? She asked. To the fringe of the Dominion's control, Daniel replied. There are worlds suffering under their rule. People waiting for a spark. They don't know it yet, but they need someone to show them that hope is still alive. That's where we'll make our stand, at least for now. The journey took them through asteroid fields, past shattered moons, and around planets scarred by war. On every world, Lyra saw evidence of the Dominion's cruelty. Burned cities, shattered fleets, and populations living in fear. Her heart ached, but Daniel's calm presence gave her courage. One day, as they approached the planet Virelia, Daniel slowed the ship. This is it, he said. A mining world, controlled by the Dominion but full of people who want freedom. Lyra leaned forward, scanning the planet. Smoke rose from industrial complexes and patrol ships orbited like vultures. It's dangerous, she said quietly. Daniel nodded. Yes, but danger is where humans shine. This is where we can help them rise. Landing on Virelia was not easy. The atmosphere was thick with smoke and pollution, and the streets were patrolled by heavily armed Vorn soldiers. Daniel and Lyra moved through the shadows, avoiding patrols and using back alleys to reach the heart of the city. They entered a small tavern, a place where miners gathered after long shifts. Lyra felt nervous. She had never been among common people like this, and the humans and aliens inside eyed her with curiosity and caution. Daniel, however, walked confidently as if he belonged. He whispered to Lyra, "Observe. Listen. Humans survive because we understand people. Fear is contagious. So is hope." Lyra watched as Daniel spoke to the miners. He told them stories. Stories of humans who had survived impossible odds, stories of bravery and stories of freedom. Slowly, the miners' eyes brightened. Whispers spread across the room. Hope had returned. By the end of the night, a small group of miners agreed to help Daniel and Lyra. They would hide them, provide information about Dominion patrols, and even fight alongside them if necessary. Lyra could hardly believe it. People were ready to rise, not because of machines, not because of fleets, but because a human had shown them courage. The next morning, Daniel and Lyra led a careful strike against a Dominion supply depot. It was a small target, but symbolic. Using clever tactics, they disabled security systems, avoided alarms, and destroyed key supplies. The Dominion forces were caught off guard, and the miners celebrated their first taste of victory in years. Lyra felt a thrill she had never known before. "We did it," she whispered. Daniel shook his head with a small smile. "We didn't just do it. We sparked something. Remember this, Princess. Hope spreads faster than fear when people see courage." As word spread across Veralia, resistance cells began to form. People who had once cowered in fear now looked for ways to fight back. Lyra saw a truth she had not realized before. Humans were not just survivors. They were catalysts, symbols, and leaders, even without armies or advanced technology. For days, Daniel and Lyra coordinated strikes, teaching the miners how to defend themselves and strategize. Each small victory brought hope to more people. Lyra learned quickly, becoming more confident, more decisive, and more determined. She realized that she was no longer a helpless princess. She was a leader in her own right, guided by the wisdom of the last human. One night, as they rested on a rooftop overlooking the city, Lyra asked, "Daniel, why do you fight? You've lived alone for so long. You could have stayed hidden." Daniel looked at her, eyes reflecting the stars. "Because someone has to. Because courage matters even when the odds are against you. Humans survive because we act when others hesitate. And sometimes, helping others is the only way to keep ourselves alive, too." Lyra thought about that. She had once thought survival was about running, hiding, and waiting for rescue. Now she realized survival was about inspiring others, fighting with courage and refusing to give up. Suddenly, the comm device beeped. Daniel checked it, frowning. "The Dominion is moving. They're sending reinforcements to Veralia. They've realized something is happening here." Lyra's stomach sank. "So we fight?" Daniel shook his head. "We prepare. Fight smart. Protect the people. Humans never fight blindly. We act with strategy, not just strength." Over the next few days, they strengthened the resistance. Daniel taught them ambush tactics, ways to hide from advanced sensors, and how to sabotage Dominion supplies. Lyra led groups of miners on reconnaissance missions, gaining confidence and skill with each success. The first major encounter came when Dominion forces attempted to crush the small uprising. Hundreds of soldiers poured into the city, expecting to find terrified civilians and an easy victory. Instead, they found a coordinated network of defenders, striking from shadows, using traps, and moving unpredictably. Lyra watched from a rooftop as explosions rocked the streets below. Her heart raced, but she stayed focused. Daniel's voice guided her through comms, reminding her to stay calm, observe patterns, and anticipate movements. The battle raged for hours. For the first time, Lyra felt the thrill of victory born from courage and strategy, not luck. The Dominion forces were forced to retreat, leaving behind supplies, weapons, and their pride. The city erupted in celebration. Miners and civilians cheered, chanting the words Daniel had taught them, "Hope is stronger than fear." Lyra smiled, realizing that Daniel had done more than save her life. He had saved an entire world. As the celebration died down, Daniel and Lyra stood on a hill overlooking the city. "We've done something important here," Lyra said softly. Daniel nodded. "Yes, we've shown them that resistance is possible, that courage spreads, that humans, and those who learn from us, can change the course of the galaxy." Lyra thought about the countless worlds still under Dominion control. She knew this was only the beginning. But for the first time, she believed that victory was possible. She believed that hope could grow, even in the darkest corners of the galaxy. The suns of Verelia rose the next morning, casting light across the city. Lyra looked at Daniel, admiration and determination in her eyes. "Where do we go next?" she asked. Daniel smiled faintly. "Wherever the galaxy needs hope. Wherever people are ready to fight. And wherever humans, and those who fight with human courage, can make a difference," Lyra nodded. Together they boarded the Odyssey, leaving Verelia behind but carrying its spark with them. The galaxy was vast, full of darkness and danger, but now with hope and courage, the first step toward liberation had been taken. Somewhere, deep in the stars, the people of the Celestine Empire began to whisper a new legend, that humans, small, clever, and fearless, were not gone. They lived, they survived, and they had returned to remind the galaxy that hope, courage, and determination could never be extinguished. For Princess Lyra, that legend was no longer a story. It was real. And the human standing beside her, Daniel Ward, was living proof. The spark of hope had been lit, and soon it would ignite the galaxy. The forest planet was quiet. Birds with shimmering feathers flew across the sky, and streams reflected the twin suns in golden hues. Yet for Princess Lyra Celestine there was no peace. Every rustle of leaves made her heart race. Every shadow in the trees seemed like an enemy waiting to strike. Daniel Ward, the human who had saved her life, moved through the forest like he belonged there. His eyes scanned the horizon constantly, noting every detail, the distance between trees, the way the wind moved through the leaves, even the faint vibration in the soil. Lyra watched him in awe. Humans were supposed to be weak, fragile, yet he moved with precision, agility, and calmness that no Celestine soldier could match. "Why do you look like that?" Daniel asked without turning, sensing her gaze. Lyra hesitated. "I can't believe it. You're human. You survived when everyone thought humans were gone." Daniel allowed a small smile. "We were never gone. Just hidden. The galaxy changes, and sometimes survival means waiting in the shadows. But we never gave up," Lyra frowned. "Hidden? How? Where? Why?" Daniel finally turned to her. His brown eyes were serious yet patient. "Long ago, humans traveled across the stars. We were explorers, scientists, and warriors all at once. Other species feared our curiosity and strength. Wars came, empires rose against us. Many humans were lost, and those who survived chose to vanish, to hide, to wait for a time when our kind could rise again." Lyra shivered. She could not imagine a galaxy without humans, and yet here he was, a living proof that myths could be true. As they moved through the dense forest, Lyra asked, "So, you fight alone?" Daniel shook his head. "Sometimes. But fighting alone doesn't mean weakness. Humans survive through strategy, adaptability, and courage. When the odds are impossible, we find a way." Lyra realized then that this human, this man, was not just lucky. He was something different. He was clever, strong, and fearless in a way no one she had ever met could match. They settled near a small lake. Daniel set up a simple camp, scanning the skies with a small device. The suns were setting, painting the water with shades of red and gold. For a moment, Lyra thought she might relax, but Daniel's voice cut through the quiet. "They will come after you, Princess. The Vorn Dominion doesn't forget. You are a symbol, and symbols are hunted." Lyra's heart sank. "Even with you here?" Daniel nodded. "Even with me. But I can give you something more important than protection." He pulled a small device from his pack and handed it to her. "This is an old human tracker. It will help us avoid enemy ships. The Dominion relies on patterns and numbers. Humans, we think differently. We anticipate, we improvise, and that's how we survive." Lyra studied the device. It was small, worn, but clearly functional. "And you? You're going to teach me how to survive?" Daniel's smile was faint. "I will, but it won't be easy. You will have to think like a human, fast, smart, brave." For the next few days, Daniel trained her. They moved through the forests, practicing observation, stealth, and quick thinking. Lyra fell off and scraped her knees and sometimes wanted to give up. But Daniel's patience never wavered. "Humans don't give up," he said one morning as she tried to climb a steep hill. "We fail, we fall. We get back up and try again. That is what makes us strong." Lyra nodded, wiping the sweat from her brow. She was learning. Slowly, fear gave way to confidence. Slowly, she began to feel that she could survive, even against impossible odds. One night, as they sat near the fire, Lyra asked, "Why did you help me?" "You don't even know me." Daniel poked the fire with a stick, sending sparks into the air. "Because you needed help. Because someone had to stand when others fled. That is what humans do. We act when we are needed. Sometimes for ourselves, sometimes for others. But we act." Lyra looked at him, feeling a strange warmth. He was right. Humans were remarkable. Not just strong, but determined, fearless, and willing to fight for what mattered. Suddenly, the device Daniel had given her beeped softly. He picked it up, scanning the readout. His eyes narrowed. "They're close," he said calmly. "Not here yet, but near. We need to move." Lyra's heart raced. She was ready this time. She followed Daniel through the forest, moving silently, avoiding open spaces and keeping to the shadows. The Vorn Dominion scouts were looking for them, but Daniel's strategies worked. Every time they got close, he led them away, always one step ahead. Hours later, they reached the edge of a cliff overlooking a valley. Lyra could see the wreckage of destroyed ships far below. The sky was filled with smoke and the distant flashes of energy weapons. "They destroyed entire fleets," Lyra whispered. Daniel nodded. "Yes, but they underestimate one thing, the human factor." Lyra frowned. "The human factor?" Daniel smiled faintly. "The thing that makes humans different. Our unpredictability, our creativity, our courage. No machine, no algorithm, no alien species can fully anticipate what humans will do. And right now, that is our advantage." Lyra felt hope rising. She had been a princess, trained to rule, but never trained for this. Now, with Daniel's guidance, she began to see a future. Not just survival, but victory. As night fell, they made camp again. Daniel told her stories of human history. Of explorers, warriors, scientists, and leaders who changed the course of entire worlds. Lyra listened, fascinated. Humans had been small, fragile, and underestimated. And yet they had survived, shaped galaxies, and left legends behind. "Why did humans vanish?" she asked. "Because the galaxy wasn't ready for us," Daniel said softly. "We were too curious, too strong, too different. And sometimes it's safer to disappear than to fight endless wars. But we never forgot. We wait, we survive, and when the time comes, we return." Lyra looked at him, realizing that this human was more than a warrior. He was a living reminder of a forgotten past, a spark of hope in a galaxy that had almost lost everything. Suddenly, the device beeped again, faster this time. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "They're tracking us. The Dominion has found our signal." Lyra's heart pounded. "Then we fight?" Daniel shook his head. "Not yet, we run. But we run smart. We lead them somewhere they won't expect." The next morning, they set out, moving through hidden paths, avoiding detection, and using every trick Daniel had taught her. Hours turned into days, and the Dominion scouts followed at a distance, never quite catching up, always closing in. One evening, as they rested, Lyra looked at Daniel. I don't know if I could have survived this long without you." Daniel smiled, though tiredness showed on his face. "You could. Humans survive because we adapt. You're learning to think like a human now. Soon you won't need me to lead you." Lyra felt a surge of pride. The fear that had once consumed her was slowly being replaced by determination. She was no longer just a princess running for her life. She was a survivor, learning from the last human. In the distance, the sun set behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the valley. Daniel and Lyra watched in silence, knowing that danger was always near, but also knowing that together, they could face it. For the first time, Lyra truly believed in something she had only heard in stories, the human spirit. It was clever, resilient, and fearless, and with Daniel by her side, maybe, just maybe, the galaxy could be saved. As the night deepened, Daniel looked up at the stars and whispered almost to himself, "It's time the galaxy remembered humans again." Lyra did not understand fully, but she trusted him. Somehow she knew that this human, the last human, was about to change everything. And in the quiet forest under twin moons, hope returned to the Celestine Empire. The stars were dark around the edge of the Dominion's territory. Smoke from destroyed ships hung faintly in the void, drifting like ghostly trails. Princess Lyra Celestine stared from the Odyssey's cockpit, gripping the controls with determination. Beside her, Daniel Ward worked quietly, scanning the readings with his usual calm precision. "They're coming," Daniel said softly. His eyes never left the displays. "The Dominion knows we've been rallying resistance. They won't stop until they crush us." Lyra swallowed hard. She had faced battles on Virelia, but this was different. This was not patrol ships or scouting fleets, it was the heart of the Dominion's power. Their flagship, the Leviathan, a living war machine built from metal and energy. Its massive hull loomed on the sensors like a predator, capable of annihilating fleets in seconds. "How do we stop it?" Lyra asked, fear creeping into her voice. Daniel glanced at her. "We don't just stop it. We outthink it. The Leviathan relies on speed, algorithms, and predictability. Humans are unpredictable. That's our advantage." Lyra nodded, feeling a spark of confidence. She had learned from Daniel that courage, cleverness, and improvisation could overcome even the deadliest foes. The Odyssey moved silently toward the Leviathan's patrol zone. Daniel's small ship was no match for the Dominion's firepower, but speed and ingenuity had always been humans' greatest strengths. Lyra watched as he plotted a course through asteroid fields, debris clouds and ion storms, paths too dangerous for machines, but perfect for someone who could think beyond the expected. Hours passed in tense silence. Every reading, every blip on the radar could mean discovery or attack. Daniel remained focused, calm, his hands moving over the controls as if dancing with the stars themselves. Suddenly, the Leviathan appeared in full view, a monstrous presence against the backdrop of distant suns. Its hull was black and jagged, glowing with energy conduits that pulsed like a living heart. The Dominion's ships swarmed around it, defending their flagship as it prepared to annihilate everything in its path. Lyra's breath caught. "It's huge." Daniel's voice was steady. "It's not invincible. Nothing is. Watch and learn." The battle began with a flash of energy. The Leviathan fired, and Dominion patrols flung themselves into attack. Daniel maneuvered the Odyssey with impossible precision, dodging beams, weaving through debris, and using every trick he had taught Lyra to avoid detection. "This is insane," Lyra shouted over the alarms. "We can't fight them all." Daniel shook his head. "We don't fight them all. We fight smart. Humans never overwhelm themselves. They choose the right moment, strike where it hurts, and disappear before the enemy can react." He activated a small device on the ship. A low hum filled the cockpit as a holographic display appeared. It showed the Leviathan's internal systems, its energy flow, and the critical points that kept it alive. "Argus," Daniel said, almost reverently. "This is an old human AI. It was built to counter galaxy-ending threats. It can calculate faster than any Dominion computer, but it needs a neural link. That link is me." Lyra stared. "You're going to connect to it?" "That sounds dangerous," Daniel nodded. "It is, but it's the only way. Humans take risks because we know some risks are worth taking, and this is one of those risks." He began the connection process, wires extending from the Odyssey's core into a neural interface. Lights pulsed, screens flickered, and the ship seemed to hum with new energy. Daniel's eyes glowed faintly as Argus merged with his mind, amplifying his thoughts, reflexes, and awareness. For Lyra, the effect was immediate. The ship moved with precision beyond comprehension. Daniel anticipated every attack, every movement of the Dominion ships, guiding them through a deadly ballet of lasers, explosions, and debris. You're incredible," Lyra whispered, awestruck. Daniel allowed a faint smile. Humans survive. Humans adapt. Humans fight when others flee. Hours of tense maneuvering passed. The Leviathan fired again. Energy beams cutting through the void, tearing apart Dominion escorts. But Daniel, connected to Argus, predicted each move before it happened. The Leviathan's shields faltered as he found weak points, guiding the Odyssey to strike with precision. "This is it," Daniel said. "We go in." The ship dove toward the Leviathan's core. Lyra's heart pounded as alarms screamed. Every second, the hull strained under energy beams. Yet Daniel's skill, combined with Argus, kept them alive. Inside the Leviathan, the AI highlighted a critical node controlling the ship's energy distribution. Daniel prepared the attack. "Hold on," he said to Lyra. "We're about to make history." The Odyssey fired its payload, breaching the Leviathan's defenses. Energy cascaded through the enemy flagship, sparks flying across its hull. The massive ship shuddered as explosions rippled through it. Dominion patrols scrambled, but Daniel's tactics kept them at bay. "You can do this," Lyra shouted. I believe in you. Daniel's focus never wavered. He guided the ship through the chaos, striking critical points, avoiding destruction, and finally delivering a decisive blow. The Leviathan's core overloaded, sending a massive shockwave through the fleet. Explosions tore the Dominion ships apart, leaving nothing but debris drifting in space. The silence afterward was almost surreal. Lyra stared at the void, heart racing, unable to fully comprehend what had just happened. The Leviathan, the heart of the Dominion, was destroyed. Daniel slumped back, exhausted, wires retracting as Argus disconnected. He looked at Lyra, sweat on his brow, a faint smile on his lips. It's done, he said quietly. Lyra ran to him, relief and awe flooding her. You did it! How is this possible? Daniel shook his head. It's not just me. It's humans. Our courage, our unpredictability, our willingness to fight when hope seems lost. That's what made this possible. Argus helped, but the spark was human. Lyra realized then that she had witnessed something extraordinary. Humans were not just survivors. They were catalysts, capable of changing the fate of worlds, inspiring hope, and turning impossible odds into victory. For hours, they drifted in the quiet void, watching as the remnants of the Dominion fleet fled. Lyra felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. She had faced death countless times in recent days, but never had she seen such courage, such skill, such brilliance in one being. Finally, Daniel spoke. The fight isn't over. The Dominion will rebuild, but now we've shown the galaxy something important. Humans can still make a difference. We've sparked hope, and hope spreads faster than fear. Lyra nodded. Then we keep moving. We rally the people, we rebuild, we fight. For the Celestine Empire, and for everyone under the Dominion's rule. Daniel smiled faintly. Exactly. Humans survive. But humans also inspire, and that is our true power. As the Odyssey set a course for the next world, Lyra looked out at the stars, feeling hope burn brighter than ever. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but she had seen what humans could do. She had seen courage, ingenuity, and the power of determination. And she knew, deep in her heart, that with Daniel by her side, they could face anything. For the first time, she truly understood what her mother had always tried to teach her. Survival was not just about running or hiding. It was about courage, hope, and the willingness to fight, even when everything seemed lost. And humanity, small, clever, and fierce, was the living proof of that truth. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and the galaxy waited. The human factor had returned, and with it a chance to change everything. The galaxy was quiet, but the calm was only temporary. Princess Lyra Celestine stood on the observation deck of the Odyssey, gazing at the endless stars. They had destroyed the Leviathan, disrupted the Dominion's control, and sparked hope across several planets. But she knew the fight was far from over. Daniel Ward sat beside her, quiet and thoughtful. The human who had saved her life, taught her to fight, and inspired an entire people was still just as enigmatic as when she first met him. Lyra had learned much from him: strategy, courage, patience. But more than anything, she had learned what it truly meant to be human. They're regrouping, Daniel said, breaking the silence. His eyes scanned the sensor readings, noting the Dominion ships moving toward newly captured systems. The Dominion will strike again, bigger, stronger, smarter, but they won't find what they expect. Lyra nodded. Because of what we've done, because of the hope we've sparked. Daniel smiled faintly. Exactly. Humans survive by inspiring others. When fear spreads, so can hope. And hope can ignite change. The Odyssey traveled from system to system. Wherever they went, resistance movements were born. Farmers, miners, and ordinary citizens learned to fight. Entire colonies, once too afraid to act, now dared to strike against Dominion outposts. Lyra watched the transformation with awe. She had seen small acts of courage grow into movements, and she realized that humans, though considered weak, fragile, and long extinct, had the power to change entire worlds simply by daring to act. One day, as they entered the orbit of the industrial planet Kalira, a call came through. It was faint, almost buried in static, but recognizable. Princess Celestine, human ally, help us. Daniel leaned forward, a spark of determination lighting his eyes. They're calling for hope. That's our next mission. Landing on Kalira was tense, The Dominion had fortified the cities using automated defenses and patrol drones, but Daniel's experience, coupled with the knowledge he had passed to Lyra, allowed them to infiltrate the city with precision. Lyra led a small team of civilians and miners trained in resistance tactics. The humans had taught them to improvise, adapt, and strike strategically. The resistance took control of key supply lines, communication towers, and transit hubs. Each victory, though small, caused panic within the Dominion ranks. They had not anticipated ordinary people, led by a human and a princess daring to defy their might. "You see that?" Daniel said as they watched a patrol retreat from the city center. "Humans inspire courage. That is our greatest weapon," Lyra nodded. "I understand now. It's not just about fighting. It's about teaching others to fight," Daniel smiled. "Yes, the galaxy doesn't need a single hero. It needs people willing to rise when the time comes. That is what makes humans extraordinary." Word of their victories spread quickly, across the Celestine Empire. Whispers told of a princess traveling with a human who had survived when humanity was thought extinct. The story became legend, inspiring others to resist the Dominion wherever they could. Lyra felt a strange pride. She had never imagined herself as a symbol. Yet here she was, learning from the last human how to be one. One evening, as the twin suns set over Kalira's industrial plains, Daniel spoke quietly. "Princess, the Dominion will retaliate. They will send their strongest forces, their deadliest weapons. We cannot stop them all, not alone." Lyra looked at him, determination in her eyes. "Then we don't fight alone. We've built something stronger than any fleet or weapon. We've built hope, courage, and resistance. We fight together." Daniel nodded. "Exactly. Humans survive by uniting, by teaching others, by daring when others hesitate. That is the legacy we leave behind." The next few weeks were intense. Battles erupted across multiple systems. Dominion fleets moved to crush uprisings, yet every time they attacked, humans, Celestines, and allied species fought back with unexpected cunning. Ambushes, sabotage, and clever tactics allowed smaller forces to defeat larger ones. Lyra marveled at the courage of ordinary people. Farmers wielding weapons improvised from mining tools, scientists hacking Dominion systems, children relaying messages between resistance cells, and in every battle Daniel's presence gave them hope. He was more than a warrior. He was a symbol, a reminder that humans, even in small numbers, could change the course of history. During a critical battle over the planet Tyralis, the Dominion unleashed their deadliest weapon yet, a massive energy cannon capable of destroying entire cities. Lyra and Daniel coordinated the resistance, devising a bold plan. Using deception, timing, and the human knack for unpredictability, they guided the Dominion fleet into an asteroid field, where their massive ships were trapped and vulnerable. Daniel piloted the Odyssey into the heart of the battle, striking the weapon's weak points with precise accuracy. Lyra directed teams on the ground, ensuring civilians were evacuated and strategic targets secured. For hours, the battle raged. Lyra felt exhaustion clawing at her, but the knowledge that Daniel and their allies were fighting alongside her kept her moving. Finally, with one final strike, the energy cannon exploded in a brilliant display of light. Dominion forces were scattered, their morale shattered. The resistance had won another victory, and hope spread across Tyralis like wildfire. As night fell, Lyra and Daniel stood atop a hill overlooking the city. Fires burned in celebration below, and people cheered for their freedom. Lyra turned to Daniel, admiration shining in her eyes. "You were right," she said softly. "Humans aren't just survivors. They're catalysts. They inspire courage, and that courage changes everything." Daniel smiled faintly. "Yes, and you've learned well. You're not just a princess now, you're a leader, and leaders who inspire, who teach others to fight for hope, are the strongest force in the galaxy." Lyra nodded, feeling a surge of determination. She thought of her mother, of the Empire, and of all the world still under Dominion rule. The fight was far from over, but now she understood what needed to be done. Humanity's spirit, its courage, ingenuity, and willingness to act, could be the spark that ignited a galaxy-wide resistance. Weeks later, as they traveled to the next system, a faint signal appeared in the comms. It was fragmented but recognizable, a message from humans long thought lost. Daniel leaned over, adjusting the receiver. "Princess, listen to this." The transmission was simple yet powerful. "To all who fight, you are not alone. Humans survive, and our spirit lives on in all who dare to hope." Lyra felt tears in her eyes. The legend was real. Humanity had returned, not just as a species, but as a symbol of courage, survival, and hope. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. This is only the beginning. The Dominion will not stop. But now the galaxy remembers what humans can do. They will rise, inspired by us, inspired by hope. That is our legacy. Lyra looked out at the stars, feeling a warmth she had never known. She thought of every world they had saved, every person who had dared to resist, and every life Daniel had inspired. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable, but it was alive with hope. "Where do we go next?" she asked. Daniel smiled faintly, eyes reflecting the distant suns. "Wherever people need hope, wherever courage is needed, wherever humans, or those who fight with human courage, can make a difference." The Odyssey moved forward, gliding through the stars. Behind them, the Dominion retreated, unable to understand how a single human and a princess could change the course of battles, inspire entire planets, and awaken hope across the galaxy. For Princess Lyra Celestine, the journey had begun with fear, chaos, and despair, but it had ended with courage, determination, and the knowledge that even the smallest spark, human courage, could ignite a revolution. And somewhere, deep in the void, the whispers of humans long thought extinct traveled across the galaxy, reminding all who would listen, hope survives, courage survives, humanity survives, and wherever the galaxy needs heroes, they will rise. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of possibilities. Lyra looked at Daniel, knowing that together they had changed the course of the galaxy. Humans had returned, not as myths, not as legends, but as the spark that would light the future. The galaxy would never forget.